At the beginning of the week, Michael Gove, Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster, addressed the House of Commons to discuss the UK's no-deal Brexit plan. Despite Gove's incomprehensibly British job title, he's the minister in charge of no-deal planning, so he's perfectly poised to tell us how ready we are for no-deal. So, in this video, we're going to discuss his time in Parliament, the no-deal readiness report that accompanied his address, the reaction of industry experts, and how this report differs from the Yellowhammer document that was published earlier this year. This news actually came out at the beginning of this week, but we've been super busy sending out tons of badges to our viewers. I'm sure you already know that we have a bunch of countries with shoes badges on our site, including the UK, Scotland, EU, Austria, New Zealand, India, Italy, Portugal, Belgium, Estonia, the entire Season 2 pack, the entire Season 1 pack, and for a limited time the UK and EU together. We're almost entirely done shipping pre-orders, so if you want to place an order now, you can expect it to be shipped within a number of days. All profits get put straight back into our content, so thank you so much for your support. There's a link to the store down below. As I said a moment ago, at the beginning of this week, Gove took to the House to discuss how the UK would cope with a no-deal Brexit, as well as publishing a 159-page report on the topic. Let's take a moment to look at what Gove had to say, then we can discuss his time in Parliament and the contents of the report.
Thank you. Order. Statement the Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster. Mr. Michael Gove.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. With your permission, I'd like to make a statement on our preparations to leave the European Union on the 31st of October. It's the strong desire of this government to leave the EU with a deal, and our proposals to replace the backstop were published last week, and we hope that the EU will engage with us seriously. However, if the EU does not move, this government is prepared to leave without a deal on the 31st. Now, in preparing for every eventuality, we are today publishing our no-deal readiness report. Mr. Speaker, the actions in this report reflect our top priority, ensuring that we maintain the smooth and efficient flow of goods and people from the UK into the EU and vice versa. But it's not enough just for government to get ready. We need businesses and citizens to get ready too. Through both mass market and targeted advertising, we're alerting business and citizens to the actions that they need to take to get ready. And we're also providing a further £108 million to support businesses in accessing the information and advice they need. Of course, risks remain, and challenges for some businesses cannot be entirely mitigated, even with every possible preparation in place. But the UK economy is in a much better position to meet those risks and challenges thanks to the efforts of these sectors and companies and my right honourable friend, the Chancellor. Through the EU settlement scheme, we've ensured that every EU citizen resident here by the 31st of October can acquire a formal UK immigration status, protecting their right to live and work in the UK. To date, 1.7 million citizens have applied and 1.5 million have been granted a status. So far, very few EU member states have made as generous an offer to UK nationals. We don't believe that citizens' rights should be used as a bargaining chip in any scenario. EU citizens in the UK are our friends and family. We want them to stay. We now hope that the EU extends the same hand of friendship towards UK nationals as we have to EU nationals. Mr. Speaker, let me finally turn to the opportunities from Brexit as laid out in this report. For the first time in 50 years, the UK will have an independent trade policy. We will be able to introduce a points-based immigration system. We will have autonomy over the rules governing our world-leading services sector. We can be a beacon for the world in setting progressive policies on farming, fishing and the wider environment. Of course, no deal will bring challenges. It's not my preferred outcome, nor the government's. We want a good deal. But whatever challenges no deal may create in the short term, and they are significant, these can and will be overcome. Far worse than the disruption of no deal would be the damage to democracy caused by dishonouring the referendum result. That is what the British people voted for, and that is what this government will deliver, and I commend this statement to the House.
Yes.
Despite the clear issues that no deal presents, Gove highlighted the measures the government plans to use in order to counter these problems. That's approaches from tariffs and administrative fees to changes for Brits visiting the EU. The government clearly hopes that these plans will help mitigate some of the challenges presented by no deal. And in the full report, Johnson's foreword certainly seems to try and add a positive boost to the idea of a no deal. For me, it was clear what the British people voted for. They voted to take back controls of their laws, money, trade and borders. Today, the EU has say over practically all areas of our domestic life. But whatever happens, we must be prepared to leave on the 31st of October, even if that means leaving without a deal. This is not the option I want, but it's vital that we're as prepared as possible for all eventualities. Over the last 76 days, the Chancellor has thrown himself into this role. Thanks to that, we've made huge strides in preparedness, and we can now confidently say that the UK is prepared to leave the EU without a deal on the 31st of October. But it seems like not everyone's buying into this positive feeling, with a number of industry groups speaking up on the issue. Adam Marshall, the Director General of the British Chamber of Commerce, said that businesses' concern about an unwanted no-deal exit is rising, particularly given developments over recent days. Both sides need to redouble their commitment to do everything in their power to try and avoid this in the short time we have left. Marshall also commented that the latest temporary tariff regime only contains 3 changes, so businesses will be frustrated that it took the government so long to publish these updates. The delay has real-world impacts for businesses trying to plan for the unwanted prospect of a no deal in a matter of weeks. Stephen Philipson, the chief exec of Make UK, commented that some sectors will be dealt an especially hard blow, in particular the automotive industry, which is one of the jewels in the crown of high-value manufacturing. This will prove devastating for jobs and growth in the companies and regions who depend on its success. Now you'll be forgiven for thinking that we made this video a few weeks ago. That video, while very similar topic-wise, was actually based on the Yellowhammer report. You might remember that Yellowhammer was initially a secret internal document which was leaked by The Telegraph. Once the leak came out, MPs wanted to get their hands on the official version, and essentially forced the government into releasing it. The report was pretty damning, with some very negative predictions about the immediate aftermath of a no deal. The government was quick to refute the report, claiming that it was based on the worst-case assumptions, rather than the reasonable average assumptions that the leaked version claimed. The government also said that the document was out of date, and there had been some significant improvements since its publication. Essentially, the government's line was that the Yellowhammer report couldn't be trusted. So it's interesting to take a look at the no-deal readiness report alongside the Yellowhammer report. This way we can see if there's been any significant changes since Yellowhammer, or if the government is all talk when it comes to no deal. Some might say that we're cynical enough about the government on this channel, but you really ought to take this report with a pinch of salt. The government has clear incentives to make no deal look reasonably harmless. So while we're not saying that they have manipulated the numbers and the assumptions, it's easy to see why they could be tempted to do so. When it comes to borders, the doom has been significantly toned down. Yellowhammer predicted huge queues involving up to 2,000 lorries in the aftermath of a no deal, even going as far as suggesting that the M26 motorway might be turned into a lorry park. The new report takes a significantly different tact, saying that despite higher tariffs, businesses will continue to be able to import and export goods freely. Okay, so what about the people crossing those borders? The Yellowhammer report said that the EU citizens would be able to apply for settled status if they wanted to stay in the UK, and also suggested that there be increased immigration checks on the UK at UK and EU airports, which could lead to delays. The new report states that 3 million EU citizens will continue to have the right to work and study in the UK if they apply for settled status. Northern Ireland is another clearly important border issue. Yellowhammer said that they would use the no new checks with limited exceptions model in order to prevent new disruption on the Irish border. The new report says that they'll uphold the Good Friday Agreement by protecting the all-island economy with no border checks or tariffs. Before we move on to any other comparisons, you're probably already noticing a trend, which is that the new report chooses to highlight the positive aspects of a no deal. While we did say that this could be a cynical ploy from the UK, it's worth noting that this could also be the result of genuine improvements in no deal preparation. Anyway, food is one area where there's been a lot of people concerned, with some speculating that a no deal could result in reduced food supply and increased costs for customers. Yellowhammer confirmed this, saying that food supplies imported from Europe would decrease, and that they weren't able to fully anticipate the impact. The final report is significantly more positive, saying that resilience is embedded within the food industry, and the government has worked closely with the food industry to inform contingency plans. Medical supplies are even more important, and the Yellowhammer report painted a bleak picture, saying that supply chains were particularly vulnerable, and noting that not all supplies can be stockpiled. The report concluded that this could result in delays of up to 6 months. The new report tries to mitigate this, saying that there'll be extra freight capacity and stockpiling to mitigate the disruption. So you can see why some people accuse this report and Gove's speech of sugarcoating the idea of a no deal, and not focusing on the reality of the situation. You could also say that in the months since Yellowhammer, the new government has focused on no deal prep and that we're genuinely in a better spot now. What do you think? Comment down below to let us know if you have faith in these plans, or if you think that the risks are being downplayed. We'll continue to report on this as it plays out, and if there's a no deal, you can be sure that we'll analyse the impacts. So make sure you subscribe to the channel to be updated on what happens next. You can also hit the bell icon if you want to be notified every time we release a video. And if you want more from us, you can find TLDR across all social networks simply by searching for TLDR News. And if you want your name featured at the end of the videos, just like these people, then you can sign up to back us on Patreon. There's a link to that in the description.